Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're tackling one of the most common small space gardening challenges, and that is what to do when your summer crops are ready to go in, but your spring crops are not ready to be harvested yet. So this is always a challenge for me at the end of May because my spring crops are still growing. I have no room in the garden and all of my summer crops need to get into the garden. So to deal with this issue, I'm tackling this in 3 ways. Number 1, I'm going to be interplanting some of my summer crops with my spring crops. My hope is that as the spring crops begin to fizzle out, the summer crops begin to thrive. A perfect example of this is planting a lot of your beans and cucumbers alongside your sugar snap peas. This way, as the sugar snap peas comes to an end, your beans and your cucumbers will be thriving. These guys are great companion plants, so there's no issue putting them together. The other way I'm doing this is to go vertical. I'm adding trellising to the end of one of my raised beds, and along that trellis, I'm planting cucumbers, I'm planting squash, and also on the corners, I'm adding pumpkins so that they're growing outwards out of my raised beds while the cucumbers and squash go vertical. I should add here that when it comes to growing vertically, getting a GreenStalk is a great way to add more space to your garden in a small amount of square feet. For 2 square feet, I'm getting about 30 pockets of planting space. Now, if I had space in my GreenStalk, I would put a lot of my beans there, but I still have some Napa cabbage for my spring garden. And once that's gone, I'll tuck in a few more summer crops. And the third way to deal with this issue is to grow in containers. Now, I created a whole new area in my raised bed garden that I expanded just to put some of my containers. So today, I'm going to show you which plants you should be pairing together, even when you still have your spring crops growing. I'm going to show you how to optimize your raised beds, get the most out of your garden. But before we get started, if you're new here, hi guys, my name is Marsha the Blackthumbgardener, and I live in Ontario, Canada, Zone 5B, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe, and if you're returning, welcome back, and thank you so much for supporting my channel. Now let's get started. So for this tray of summer crops, I started them indoors a few weeks ago, and in this tray I have things like cucumbers, squash, pole beans, and bush beans. For those of you who don't know, I have a small space garden. I have one 9-foot Vago raised bed along the fence, and this is where I have all of my brassicas this season. And then as we head into the main raised bed area, you can see I have 6 raised beds, and pretty much every raised bed has something in it. Some look a little bit sparse than others just because the plants are tiny. For example, in the last video, we planted up tomatoes in the 2 raised beds that are against the trellis. We also planted peppers in this bed, onions, carrots, beets, and some spinach, marigolds, and basil. So there's a lot there. And as these plants grow, the bed and the entire garden is going to explode. We have some garlic in this bed here, so we're going to do some planting here today. I've added a trellis, and then over here is where our spring crops are still growing. Now I do want to plant tomatoes here, but I need to do a big harvest and it's just not ready yet. Over here we have some garlic in this bed, and that's not going to come out until July. We have some more summer crops. This is peppers, tomatoes, basically a replica of the bed that I just went through. And then back here is where we have more of our spring crops. This is where we have our peas. We do have some radishes, lettuce, and carrots, but it's taking a long time for the peas to grow. A few videos back, because I wanted more space in my garden, I also added this area right here. I expanded the raised bed garden. This was all grass before, so I basically covered over the grass, added a walkway as well, and now I have this entire area ready for containers. You can see that I've emptied out a couple of containers. I also have this one here. So this is where I'm going to be putting things like my sweet potato slips. I have 2 different varieties of sweet potatoes this season. I also plan on putting some of my squash and other vining crops here in this area. So my goal this month is to try and plant all of the seedlings I had in the grow room out into the garden as much as possible. I really don't want to go into June with a whole bunch of seedlings on the deck. Number one, it's stressful looking at all of these seedlings every day, having to water them. It just takes a lot of effort and energy to manage seedlings when they're out in the sun on your deck. So I want to get them into the garden as soon as possible. And let me know if you're having the same challenges as I am. I feel like I'm falling behind this season, but I know I'm not. I know I'm right on schedule. So if you're in zone 5, 6, and below, let me know in the comments. Do you feel like you're falling behind? And if you do, just know that you're not. You're right on schedule. So we're going to start off today planting cucumbers. And today I'm planting 3 varieties of cucumbers. Now, if you didn't see my seeds to start in May video, in that video, I actually talked about the 3 varieties I'm growing this season and why I'm growing certain varieties. Now, the homemade pickles is the first variety that I'm growing, and the reason why is because I love making homemade pickles. It's probably one of the easiest things to do to preserve your harvest over the season. The other 2 varieties are what's considered a burpless variety. This helps to minimize the impact of the cucumber beetle. It doesn't mean I'm not going to get any, and the cucumber beetle is one of the worst pests you can get for your cucumber. Completely destroys your plant very easily. So I'm growing 2 varieties this season. The first one is Persian baby cucumbers, and the second variety is what's called burpless hybrid. I think that one is from either Mackenzie's or OSC seeds. So right now I'm planting my cucumbers against this trellis at the end of my raised bed that had the garlic when we just did the tour. The smell will help deter pests from attacking the cucumber plant, so it's a great idea to plant them nearby. So as usual, I'm adding some worm castings to the hole, and I'm going to add the ProMix granular fertilizer. Now I don't have to add the worm castings. I've already amended this bed, but I'm just going to do it anyways. So here I'm going to add the burpless cucumber. Just trying to get it out of this container. Look at that. This is what it looks like. Wow. Gorgeous seedling. And I'm going to get one more burpless. There we go. And I'm in between. I'm going to put homemade pickles. There we go. So we have 3 plants here. Now we're going to be able to harvest majority of the crops in this bed come July, but at least for now I've added this trellis to the end of my raised bed, and that gives me space to add some of my summer crops. This is a great way to add your summer crops into the garden, especially those that are vining. We're going to add one more plant, but on the other side of this trellis, and that's going to be a squash. We're growing this year Uchi Red Curry. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So I'm going to add that to the other side, and my hope is that they'll work together to trellis their way up to the top. This is what it looks like. Now this one hasn't been doing so well. It's been outside longer, and I really needed to get it into the garden ASAP. Now we have 3 cucumbers on the outside of this trellis. We have the Uchi Red Curry on the inside of this trellis, and along the corners of this raised bed, I'm going to start to add some of my pumpkins. So this year I have 2 pumpkin varieties. The first one is Baby Bumps. This was also sent out to me by West Coast Seeds to trial in my garden, and I'm really excited to get that one in today. And the other one is a mini Jack pumpkin. So if you have a small space, I highly recommend growing the mini Jack if you want to get a harvest of pumpkins this season. So I'm gonna add, where is the Pro Mix? Here it is. And then I'm gonna add one to this corner. Oops. Now, the other corner is where we planted the baby bumps. This corner is where I'm going to grow the mini jack. And my hope is that they'll cascade out this way. I do have an onion and a garlic here, and I think that will be perfect. Hopefully, it will deter all of the squash bugs this season. No promises, though. And of course, labels, because I will forget. Here we go. Okay, now that that bed is done, and I'm really excited to see how everything grows together, but now we're going to be working over here. So in this bed, as I've mentioned before, I have all of my sugar snap peas. I also have some radishes, lettuce, and carrots in this bed. I did have spinach, but they were all eaten by the birds, so we'll forget about that for now. So what I plan to do in this bed is I'm going to add our last cucumber variety, which is the baby Persian cucumber. And yes, you can plant your cucumbers with your peas. And because this is a natural trellising system, my goal is that as the sugar snap peas fade, the cucumbers will begin to take off. I'm also planting pole beans to this bed, and underneath, in between, I'm going to see if I can tuck in a few bush beans as well. So right now the sugar snap peas are going up each of the poles here that we built. Now this entire structure was done in early spring. So if you want to see how this was done, and I'll step back so you can see the whole structure. There we go. I will link that video below where we built this. My goal is to put the cucumbers in between so it can hold on to the string and trail its way up. And then the beans I plan on putting at the back. I'm going to start off with the pole beans, and I'm going to put one on each side. So I have two varieties of beans here. The first one is Seychelles pole bean, and I'm going to run this up the trellis. It's my favorite pole bean of all time. And the second bean variety that we have here is a bush one. This one is called Goliath. So I might put that one underneath and in between so it remains a little bit protected. So this is the Seychelles pole bean. Oops, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to plant the cucumber varieties in the middle here. And I'm going to plant the Persian baby cucumbers on each side. I also want to mention here that tucking in seeds is another great way to get your summer crops in, especially for fast-growing crops like cucumbers. Planting your beans and cucumbers with your peas is a great way to optimize your space, especially if you have a small space garden like I do. As your spring crops begin to fizzle out, your summer crops begin to thrive. Using containers like what I have behind me is a great way to add more space into the garden. This way you can move around your containers to wherever you need it to go. Guys, take a look at my ginger. We started this together, I think, back in February. Now, I have cut some of the tops just because they've grown so leggy, but this will be fine. It will grow back. Now we're planting one of my favorite crops to harvest from the garden, and that is sweet potatoes. Now you can start your sweet potatoes in water or you can start them in soil. I have always started my sweet potatoes in water and it works really well for me. So I have some slips here that I am excited to finally get into these containers. Just gonna give you a better look so you can see what they look like. Wow. And if you're asking which variety of sweet potato, it's just your basic sweet potato that you can get at the grocery store. I do have a purple sweet potato, but they're still growing leaves, so I'm just waiting on that one, and I'll plant it later on. Look at that. Oh my gosh. So these are the cuttings from when my leaves are growing too long. When these stems are growing too long, I cut the ends and then I stick them in some water, and they've grown some roots. So we're going to plant these as well. So the rest I'm going to save for my friends. I'm actually making a drop off of seedlings tomorrow, and I do have more leaves that are starting to form on the sweet potatoes I have inside. So in the next week, I'll plant the rest of that into the garden. And that's it, guys. 3 ways that you can still get your summer crops into the garden, even though your spring crops are not ready to be harvested yet. I hope this video was helpful, especially to my small space gardeners out there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.